Good morning and welcome back to Modeling in Fusion 360 for beginner woodworkers. And this is another live session that we are doing to recording, unfortunately, because the internet connectivity here in this part of the world during this ongoing snowstorm that we seem to be having for the last few days does not seem to be very stable, and I don't want to lose you in the middle of the class, so we are going to record this. This is actually going to be a two-part session by request from one of our loyal subscribers and students here learning Fusion 360 with us. They are looking for a monitor stand and how to model it. So what we're actually going to do is do two totally different styles of monitor stand and show how it's done. And then we're actually going to do something that is totally separate, and we're going to use the techniques we use in the second of these stands to model a nice little coffee table with proud dovetails. But first, we'll start one of those parts of the monitor stand by clicking on this new sketch. And our new sketch is going to start looking down at the stand itself. And I'm going to say, create a center point rectangle from the middle and just drag it out. It doesn't matter how big it is. We're going to give it some dimensions later. We just need to sort of make it in this shape. So I'll hit Escape to get out of that and click on the Dimension tool. And I will dimension one side of this to be 34 inches wide. I'll scroll out with the middle mouse button and I will dimension the other dimension to be 9.5 inches. And that is our shape. Now on the outside, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a curve going from one edge to the other edge that is centered. And it's just going to be a very subtle curve. And we'll tell it how big that's going to be in a second. So I will draw a line from the center point of this curve to the edge here, and I'm going to scroll in. I'll hit Escape to get out of the tool, click on the line and press X, which will make it a guideline. Now the difference between the guidelines and the black lines and blue lines that are in here is that these lines, the solid ones, are where the three-dimensional components are cut. And the ones that are dotted are not going to cut us a piece. So it won't separate our model into multiple pieces, and that makes it a little easier to select them. Now if I click on this Dimension tool and click on this line, I can click out here and tell it that I want it to be 5/8 of an inch. And that is going to be my nice little thumbnail profile. That's one side already finished. Now, I want to create a little base for this. So if I click on this Curve Arc tool and I create another arc that is going to be curved around the center, and I do the same thing again, curved around the center. What I want to do is join those two up with some lines. 1, 2, and that's going to be how our base is going to look. I'm going to tell it how far I want them to be apart from each other, and I'm going to tell it exactly the same curve. So if I go in here and I click concentric, I want a concentric relationship between the outside curve and this one, and I want it between the inside curve and the other. It doesn't seem to be liking our concentric restriction here. I see. We don't have this one already set to be horizontal. So now, if they are horizontal, they should work quite well. Now, I want these to be symmetric around the center point. So I will draw another line straight through the center of this rectangle, click on it and hit X to turn it into a guideline, and then I will make this side and this side symmetrical around this line. I will make this edge of the curve and this edge of the curve symmetrical around this line. And I will do the same for the upper curve. It might not actually let me do that now. All right, so now if I drag these back, I can see that they are concentric with this outside edge. I can just drag them around. Now what I haven't done is I haven't told it how thick I want that support piece to be. So if I hit Dimension and click on one side, I can tell it that I want it to be exactly 1 3/16 wide. And now I just have to tell it that I want this edge to be inset from this edge. And I want that distance to be 5 7/8 inches. If I go back to Dimension again, I can say that I want each side of this support to be 1 5/8 inches from the side. And that's it. I think we're good. I think this is a little glitch here that it hasn't fully defined this line, but it is fully defined. Sometimes one just refuses to turn black for a bit, but we're not going to worry too much about that. The only other thing we need to do is make sure that it goes over to the other side. So we will say mirror. So we will copy one circle and double click on this one to select all 4. You could select them individually, but if you double click on one, it selects all the linked lines. We will select as a mirror line. Did we forget to draw it? I forgot to draw it. I need to draw a line down the center from center point to center point, and I will click on it and hit X. Now we can go back to mirror. As you can see, I make just as many mistakes as anybody else. The important part is knowing how to fix them. Select the mirror line and hit OK. Now if I click on the outside lines, click and hit X, click and hit X, now we have only the outside edges of the stand we are going to be building here today. So if I hit Finish Sketch and scroll out, I will hit Extrude. I will pick the outside piece, but of course I want it to be the inside pieces as well, because this is the top we're modeling here. And we're going to make it 1 3/8 inches thick by typing in 1 3/8 inches and say New Component. We're going to go over here and label it top by double-clicking on it and hitting Top. Then we hit Enter. And if I scroll up, I can see the sketch has disappeared. We'll open our Sketches folder and just turn it back on. We'll say Extrude the 2 bottom pieces, and the 2 bottom pieces are going to be 3 inches. But they're going to be 3 inches down, so we'll change it to be a negative, and we will say New Component. And hit OK. Now we don't need that sketch anymore. We can look now up here at the top, and what we have is a beautiful little support. Now I think it needs to be a bit stronger than that, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our little sketch and hit Edit. We're going to create a center point rectangle through the center, and it's going to go out here to the side. I will create a dimension, and I will say that these outside lines are going to be 1 1/8 inches. And I'm going to say that let's drag it out here. And I'm going to say that the outside edges are going to be, I'm not going to give it a dimension to the outside edge, I'm going to give it a dimension from the inside edge. From here to here is going to be 2 1/8 inches. So they're going to go in a little, but it is going to be only 2 1/8 inches in. So this support will go right through all the sides. So I'll say Finish Sketch, look up, and turn it on. Now I will say Extrude. I will extrude all the pieces of this line, and I'm only going to extrude them down 1 1/8 inches. Remember, it has to be negative to go down. And instead of cutting, we're going to say New Component and hit OK. And that will give us a nice support brace that goes along. Now, I think that actually looks pretty good to be square on the ends, but what we will do is we will chamfer those ends. We'll turn the sketch off and say Modify Chamfer. And I will select the 2 outside edges on both sides. We'll say it's going to be equal distance, and we'll say that we want it to be 1/4 inch chamfer on those edges, just to soften them a little. And now we have a nice chamfered edge. The only other thing that we need to do is worry about the joinery and how these connect up with each other. Now, in terms of this support brace, I think what we're going to do is we're just going to take that and cut it right through these two pieces. So let's do that exactly as we would if it was real. We will say combine one side and this rod. Cut, OK. We'll right-click on the background and hit repeat and do it with the other side as well. The piece we're going to cut through and the piece we're going to cut with, then hit OK. Now if I go up here, this one is the feet, so I'll call it feet. This one is our support, so we'll call it support. Call these anything you want, but if I turn off the support piece, I can now see that I have a space cut for it. We could have half-lapped it, or we could do it this way. I think this way is totally fine. And if we have that go in, let's turn our top off. And how are we going to mount our top? We're going to mount our top with two dowels. And that's really all we need to put in here through the center piece. And we're going to have two dowels on each of these sides. We're going to have a dowel that goes right through this support brace so that it doesn't have to be attached independently to these supports. So if I go up here and I model on the top of this brace, what I want is a line that goes through the center, so I know where the center is. I'll click on that line and hit X to turn it into a guide, and then I will go in and I will draw a circle. We're going to make a circle that is 5/8 of an inch. So I'll hit dimension and make it 5/8 of an inch. It is right here on the center, and we just need to tell it where exactly it's going to be. So we'll say dimension from the end to the circle, and we'll call it 3 5/8 in from the end, which will put it right there. What I want to do in addition to that is make another circle out here for another dowel. We're going to offset that a little, but it is going to be the dimension. I click on it, click out here. I want it to be the same dimension. So I will click on this dimension we already have. So if I change that, it changes both of them, and hit OK. Well, hit Enter. The OK key, you could say. I will click on the dimension tool, and I will say that I want it to be from one circle to the other. Oops, from one circle to the other. I want them to be 2.5 inches apart, which I think puts it a little too far out, so we'll call it 2 inches apart. That looks better. And I want it to be from the end, from the end, I want it to be 3 7/8 inch in. And that puts it right there on our support piece. Now I could draw another one and dimension it over here, but I'm actually just going to click on it, hit mirror, and mirror it across this center line. And now we have our 3 dowel holes, well, our 3 dowel models. I'll say Finish Sketch and click on Extrude. Then I'll select all 3 of them, and we're going to say from one side to 2 sides. In the up direction, we will make them exactly 5/8 of an inch. And in the down direction, we will make them exactly 3 inches. And if you look, you can see they are going down way too far. So down, we're going to make them 1 5/8. We will say New Component, hit OK. And now with the magic of modeling, we will hit this mirror tool, pick all 3 bodies, select the mirror plane as the middle, and we will make 3 new bodies. I'm going to name this dowels, just so we don't get confused. Now, if I combine the base, open the dowels folder, and pick all 6 dowels, it will cut just the ones that intersect. I'm going to repeat by right-clicking and hitting repeat. I'll pick this foot, the 6 dowels, and cut. Repeat, other foot, 6 dowels, and cut. Now if I turn the dowels off, not only do I have holes that go all the way through, including through the support and the feet. The only thing I don't have those dowels into is the top, so I'll turn the top back on, hit Combine, Top, pick those 6 bodies, hit OK, and now I can scroll back up and I can see this thing. Now I think this top is a little heavy for this, so So if I click on it, it will show me that I extruded it down here in the tree. It was the first thing I extruded. But because it's parametric, I can right-click on it and hit Edit Feature. And instead of it being 1 3/8, I'm going to call this 13/16 thick and hit OK. And now I have that. Just because it's a little thin compared to those dowels now, I can go in and edit this feature and change this so that the dowel is now only 3/8 of an inch into the top. So if I turn the top off, I have shortened all 6 of my dowels with a single change. Now there we go. We have this nice little monitor stand that should be able to hold up a computer or hold up a monitor or whatever. What I would like you to do is I would like you to tell me what you think of this design, and we're going to go on to the second part of our live stream for this morning by showing you a totally different design for a monitor stand. And once you've watched both of them, I want you to tell me which one you prefer and what you would change about either of them. We do have a few other options for what to do with this one. This is a very traditional style Asian type of design with a flat support beam and sharp edges. Now I would probably break those edges with a little block plane if I was actually going to make this in real life. I wouldn't model those tiny chamfers, but you could chamfer all the edges, make it soft down, and round them over. So what I'm going to do here now is I will show you slightly another option before we go to our different style. So if I say Modify, Chamfer, and I click on the outside edges of this top, we're going to do a slightly different design aesthetic for the whole thing. So if you ever have one of these sharp designs and you want to make it a lot more modern, we could say we want, whoops, that's chamfer. I wanted round over. Modify, Fillet. I will pick the 4 edges. Sorry, I clicked the wrong tool. If you're following along with me, you probably made the same mistake that I did. And on those, I want those to have a 3-inch round over, which will actually give me a nice big curve. What I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat that fillet. I'm going to pick the outer edges of the bottom feet. I'm going to give them a 1/2 inch fillet. And I'm going to pick the, oh, I already chamfered that, didn't I? I've got to go back, remove the chamfer, right-click on the chamfer and hit delete. And I am going to modify fillet, the 2 outside edges and the bottom of this piece. 2 outside edges and the bottom. Scroll in, scroll in. If you can't click anything, just drag it around until you can. You can always drag these things around by clicking the middle mouse button and dragging, scrolling in and out to zoom, and holding Shift to rotate around your canvas. And we will call this 1/2 inch. 1/8 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch. Let me type it correctly and hit OK. And now we have a much, much more rounded piece. And that looks a lot more modern. It gives us a totally different aesthetic. It looks slightly less Asian. It looks slightly more contemporary modern. I think now you have a monitor stand that looks more like a skateboard than anything else. And I think that's pretty good. We could change that to make it out of a different wood. I believe our subscriber was saying that he was going to make it out of ash. So I'm going to change this to be ash. And I think it would look really great if we had a nice stain on just that support piece. So I'm going to change the support piece to be stained ash. And I will come up here and I will make it a darker stain. We're going to make it a much darker stain. And hit close. And we now have a beautiful decorative monitor stand, which I think works out quite well. So thank you for joining us for the first half of this class. If you don't mind, if you could like, share, and go ahead and subscribe and click that bell so that you can join us for the next installation of this when we do another modeling class on designing a monitor stand, and then move on and build a matching coffee table. So, thank you yet again, and we'll see you next time.